Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ken LaRue, and we're going to take a 30-minute fast-paced dive into the all-new Smoke 2015. And there's a lot of things we're excited about this release. First of all, we have new timeline effects that you're going to see. If you're familiar with Smoke, there's a lot of tools that are inside of Connect Effects you're going to find there right now in your timeline, like the Action tool, which is really powerful. 3D tracking, we've added the capabilities to do 3D tracking directly inside of Smoke. It's not a plugin, it's not something you have to add, it's right out of the box. Also, our support for XML. We've always been able to take your Final Cut 10 and Final Cut 7 or Avid Media Composer timelines and bring them into Smoke. Well, now we can actually export XML out of Smoke if you want to go back to some of those applications. User enhancements. The speed that I see in this release is unbelievable compared to what we've had before, especially when you're on the new Mac Pro, which we have over on the pod and on our stage here. And also, coming soon is what we call desktop subscription. This is how we're going to be selling Smoke as of May 8th. It's called desktop subscription, and you could be using Smoke for as low as $149 a month. This is the same powerful package that we've been showing you for the last couple of years. We introduced 2013 2 years ago. We continue to make it more accessible as ever before. Also, Tuesday night, if you got nothing going on, come visit me. When I'm going to be at the Super Meet, I'd love to show you one-on-ones. We're also doing a nice stage presentation over there. The last thing I'm going to talk about before we get into Smoke is a book that's available. And if you're really nice to me and you don't heckle me, I might actually give you a copy of this at the end of my demo. So, Alexis Herkman wrote a book called Smoke Essentials. It's an excellent book to get started with learning Smoke. It's also the content that I'm going to be using during my demo. He created a short film called The Place Where You Live, and that is the content that I'll be using. So if we go back into Smoke, I want to play a small trailer of the film, and then we'll come back and look at how some of these shots were done. Audio for the Mac, please.
Hey, happy anniversary.
People are starting to ask about it. I'm almost done. With what? It's the big mystery project. It's personal. It's bad enough that your program is based on a theory that nobody cares about.
So as you can see, it is a very heavy effect film. If I scrub through some of this, you'll notice that we've got these different shots. And one of the shots is this one where she has these contact lenses in her eyes. And the concept is these contact lenses allow her to see the heads-up display that she uses for her computers, entertainment, and whatever. So I want to walk through how some of these shots were done, such as this one right here. So down here in my timeline, I'll zoom in. We've got our live action shot of our woman, the eyes. So let's just do some things. We'll set our keyframes, our in and outs, and we want to do a 3-point edit. I like this. I know my file has the word I in it, but I don't know where it's at. So I can very easily just enter it into my search engine, and you'll see that Smoke will bring up all the clips that I need that are possibly with the letter I, the word I in it. I'll do a simple overwrite. So now we've got our clip placed on top, and our job now is to composite that into her eyes. So let's go back up to the top level and let's start adding some tools to this. So as I mentioned just a second ago, we've added more tools into the timeline that were available inside of Connect Effects in the past. So if I go to my tool bin, you'll notice here I've got Action. Now I didn't make a mistake. I didn't say the wrong word. That is the full 3D compositing tool known as Action that normally is in Connect Effects, is available right here inside of my timeline. So I can now start to do 3D compositing. I can access different elements or different controls of the Action tool, such as its different blend modes, the lighting, and so on. So if I want to switch my blend mode to a screen, maybe we take our transparency down. But there's a point where I want to access everything that Action does offer me. Any tool you place in your timeline, with it selected, you have this option called Editor. When I step into the Editor, you're going to see that I have a 2-view layout right now. And again, we have different nodes that are relationships. So here's my camera, here's my light, my footage, and I also have an Axis tool which allows me to do transformation. We obviously need to take this clip and follow the movement of the eye. So I'm going to step into the tracker, and looking at the footage, you would probably think there's no way a tracker is going to hold on to that, but I'm going to click the Analyze button, and actually Smoke does such a good job, it picks up errors where she blinks her eyes. It probably really wouldn't be a big deal, but I just want to show you how you can fine-tune that a little bit. So I'll go to my curve editor, I'm going to set up some parameters to look at all my keyframes, and I'll very easily region select all of them, and now I can come in here and use one of the many math operations such as simplify, and just simplify the keys that we're going to be using. We could take it further if we wanted to and even delete the keys at one point, such as here I said I don't want that key. We can just take that, delete that, and get rid of it. All right, now I want to save this. So we'll go back over here, and I just choose Save, and I'm going to overwrite the one I created this morning. And I'll go back out, and we step out. You can see now I've got a perfect track of that element. Now, a contact lens is not a flat object, and what's great about smoke is neither is your footage. I can now take this and make it look like a contact lens actually is. What I mean by that is if I switch my object from flat to extended by cubic, I can now come in here and subdivide this. Now that is an object I can bend and manipulate and move around. So the point of this, if I rotate this just for demonstration purposes, I can take the center part, and I can take this and see, and I can bubble this out so it actually looks like a contact lens would in the real world. So this is great. Now I want to go put that into position where I want it to be. But this axis right here, that has my tracking data. I don't want to mess with that. So that's why you can build these relationships with these nodes. So this is another axis I'm adding that I can come in, I can position this, manipulate it in any way that I want without damaging or affecting the tracking data that's already part of that. Now I'm going to step back out to the timeline. I could have very easily duplicated that, but I want to add more controls on an individual level. So if I come over to my tools, I'll add a blur tool. And at the first frame, I'm just going to crank my blur up. And we can see that I'm blurring everything right now. Well, that's because the blur tool is applied after the action tool. So I'm just going to drag and drop it to the beginning. And now you can see we're focusing only on the actual contact lens, which is what I want. Then I would come along here and re-blur that out, and we would just keyframe this to match the camera movement, the focal point of the camera. So I'll set some keyframes here, move forward a little bit more, and then I can take my blur and drag it down. For time constraints, I've got another layer right here where you'll see that I've duplicated that layer and I've got the two contacts in place. The next problem I have is she's blinking her eye, so I don't want my contact lenses visible when she blinks her eye. To solve that, I'm going to duplicate my bottom layer, bring this up here, and I'll comp out masks in those so it reveals the contacts in this eye. So once again, I'll select my layer. I go to my tools. I'll throw a garbage mask on. I'm going to enter right into the garbage mask. And I'm going to zoom back just a little bit so we can see the whole thing. And I'll add a garbage mask. I'll just draw my mask around this eye first, as so. Just like any other garbage mask you're probably familiar with, you've got different tangent handles. You can make effects to it. I can look at the end result. I got a graphic issue happening. That's all right. Go and maybe bring some softness to this. But what do we need to do now? We need to take that and have that file and move along. Now remember, I saved my tracking data earlier, so let's just repurpose it. I go into my tracker. I'm not going to process. I'm going to choose load, and I save the one that I did before. Now I got it animated perfectly for me. But I need to manually animate the mask now where she blinks her eye. So I'll go to right before she blinks. I'll hit this button, Set Key. That sets a keyframe for every parameter of this mask. So I can do that twice, and I can go where she's blinking her eye, and I can very easily just manipulate the mask and animate it at this frame because auto key is on, and I can have my mask animated for me. Pretty straightforward stuff, but let's go and load one where both the masks are now done. So I'm back out of my timeline. I want to turn on my comp option. So I turn this on like so, and I'll change a parameter, and there you have it. Now here's the performance thing. I have not processed anything yet. I hit play button, and watch what happens. I'm playing this back in near real time with two action tools, multiple blurs, the garbage mask. That's the enhancement I talked about, the under hood stuff that we've done so much work on. So let's jump over to another shot here. So this is one of those heads-up display shots. I've got it where we've got our friend Arthur here. This is the gentleman Arthur. And first of all, I want to do a couple things to it in the timeline to show you how you can bring this into Connect Effects, which is our node-based compositor. The first thing I want to do is brighten it up a little bit. I'm also going to go to a one viewport layout just so I can focus on my shot. So let's go to my tools, and I'll add a color warper. So I put the color warper on it, and we come to the first frame, and I can set the white value to be a little brighter, so we whiten this whole thing up. Whoop, bear with me. Okay, I put it on the wrong clip. Bear with me. User error, never the software. So now I can brighten this up as so. But now I want to go in and do some selective color correction. Maybe this sign back here, that picture back there, I want to color correct just that. So we'll take the color corrector, step into the tools, and what I love about this tool is that it has keying tools right inside of it. So I can now come in here and just pick the area that I want to affect. Now you'll see I create a matte. Now I've unfortunately, I've sampled more than I want, but here's what's great is I've got these tools to come over here and start fine-tuning my mat. I can even choose my softness and just really refine the mat that I'm going to use. We'll go back out to our end result, and if I wanted to color correct that, you can see, if I wanted to color correct that, I can very easily color correct just that area. But what I want to do is take my saturation and just bring it down a little bit. Now, there's multiple ways of doing the same thing. What if I want to color correct just his face? I want to show you how I can do that. I'm going to add another color correction tool afterwards. And with this color correction tool, I'll take my saturation and just bring it up really high for demonstration. But it's obviously affecting everything. So let me add a mask into my timeline here. And we're going to take that mask and go right into its editor once again. Now, typical workflow when you're doing masking and rotoing is you don't want to add a lot of control points to the mask because it makes it more difficult. But with Smoke's tracker being as powerful as it is, I'm not even concerned if I add extra control points, even more than I probably would need, because the tracker is that powerful and allow me to rotoscope this in a matter of seconds instead of a day, an hour, or whatever you normally would do to do something like this. So if we take a look at our mat, my view is acting kind of strange for some reason. So let me come over here and just kind of soften that up a little bit. So as I was saying, what if I want to animate this? I got to go and do that frame by frame, not with Smoke. I'm going to region select all of those control points. I go into my tracker, I just click Analyze, and in less than 15 seconds, it's going to rotoscope that mask automatically for me. That would take hours to do if I had to do this by hand. This is just a great example of the powerful tracking, and this is our 2D tracker. I haven't even got to the new 3D tracker, which is going to impress you even further than this one. All right, the track is done. I return back out. I go back. You see my mask has been animated for me. I'm going to take my offset just a little less. I don't want that much. Go back out to the timeline. I'll take that mask, drag it before my color correction tool, and then I'll tell the color correction tool to use the mask. Now he looks like an Oompa Loompa because he's nice and pink. Okay. Now, the point now is I want to go into Connect Effects, the node-based compositor, but I want to show you something. I've got 3 tools that have been applied in my timeline, and I want to bring those into Connect Effects. So this is what's great. I go to my tools. I get different options as to how I want to bring this into Connect Effects. I'm going to tell Smoke to bring this in as a flow chart. Say, yes, I do want you to do that. So it takes the clip, it brings in my color correction, it brings in my garbage mask that's been animated for me, and it also brings in the color correction. Now you look down below, I've got a ton of more tools that I can use inside of Connect Effects, including one that's called Damage. If I take this tool and add it into my flow, I now can come in, if I wanted to make parameters, I can adjust them, or if I wanted to, I can come and choose something like a night vision or whatever, a preset that we have. What we're going to do here is just create some scan lines to create the effect of the view that we're working on. So I'm just going to take this like that. And that's what we're going to do. Okay, that color correction is driving me crazy. It's almost too much. But let's return back out to the timeline. So now here we have all that taking place. Now keep in mind what I need to do. This is supposed to be an image floating in 3D space in front of the woman. So this clip has a Connect Effects already on it. But I'm going to select both those clips. I go over to my effects ribbon. I'll tell it to create a 3D composite for me. And when I do that, Smoke takes all the tools, converts them, but then it adds the action tool, the 3D compositor, and composites those 2 elements into the action tool itself. So if I step into there, you'll see there's my layer for my character Arthur. I'm going to change a preference. I know that I need to change this. Bear with me. So now what I can do is take Arthur, and I can start to rotate him. I can position him where I want him to be. I can also go over to my display my images here, and I can take another clip and just bring another layer. So let's say we take this one, and we set this to be our screen. And then we want to go and start to have them follow the camera movement, right? So this, again, is where we start to build the relationships of these nodes. I'll take this axis, and I'll step into the tracker, and I'm going to do a camera solve, a camera track for this node. And the reason why I want to do this on one node is because then I can feed that to as many different layers as I want. Instead of having to do it to each individual layer one at a time, the workflow such as this is a much more efficient workflow, allowing you to repurpose what you're doing. So I just take a hotkey and I kiss, and now I've got Arthur floating in space, following the actual camera movement, but I still have the independent control of each individual layer that I can now position him, put him wherever I want him to be, scale him up, and so on. And we can also then go back to here, and I can start rotating this and getting this where I want it to be in position according to what the lady's looking at. Now let me step out for just a second, because we have about 18 different elements or 10 different elements. So I'm going to load a preset that I have where a lot of the work is already done for us. And I'm going to take my back plate and feed it in properly. Just bear with me 1 second while I do that. So I'm going to feed this guy into here. And if we go and select that node, you can see now inside the action tool, I brought in a bunch of different layers, just like you saw me do with those two. And I've got my tracker, which I'm going to connect to all these different layers at one time like this. This now allows me to continue to build that relationship that I just showed you. Let me take another axis tool like so. And now if I start rotating this in 3D, you'll see that the elements are all spaced out in 3D. And the reason why I did that, or the reason why they did that actually in the film, is because they want to create depth of field. They want these different elements in the heads-up display to have different blurring effects on it. And what's great about the action tool, I'm going to hide my back layer just for a second, and I just realized I missed one of my layers. That's an easy fix. Just hold a hotkey. There we go. You can output multiple outputs out of the action tool itself. So not just my RGB comp, but also I can output a ambient occlusion pass, a shadow pass, or a Z-depth pass. And the reason why you would do that, if we step back out really quick, you'll see we have a tool called the depth of field tool. So I'll come down below, and I'll take my depth of field tool and bring it into my pipeline, and we'll connect it really quick to the two layers that I have, like so. Now the depth of field tool, if I go to its parameters, you'll see down below we've got our depthogram. I love that name alone right there, depthogram. But let's take this and blur this out, and you'll notice that everything is going to be blurred. But this is what this depthogram allows me to do. It allows me to, based on the Z-depth pass coming from action, I can control what is going to be in focus. So now I can really dial in the blur that I want. Let's take our end result and composite this together now. So we have our backplate of our woman, and I'm going to go to my tools, and I'm going to get another action tool and continue to composite this together. First, I'll put my backplate as the woman. Then I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to add my depth of field as that input. And then when we go into the action tool, I take the end result, which is the depth of field, which is also tied into the action tool, all in one location. So the point of all of this is all happening in my timeline. So now if I go out here, I say, let's go back to the timeline. I'm in my timeline. I'm watching this in context of my editorial workflow. And if I want to change anything, it's one button click away. I don't go to another application. I don't have to jump through different hoops to get to what I want to be doing. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is the 3D tracker. But before I go to that, I've got to tell you about another product that Autodesk makes. And don't worry, I'm not trying to sell you anything with this one, because this one's actually free. So this is a location you can go to on the web called 123D App. These are all free applications from Autodesk that are part of our cloud. So one of them is 123D Catch, and it's amazing what this does. Let's say I want a 3D model of this bottle right here. What I can do is take pictures with my iPhone, my iPad, or whatever. I can take pictures all around it, such as you see here done. This was done by Louis Marcoux, one of our 3ds Max gurus. And then you send those pictures up to the cloud, 123D Catch. It builds a model for you and sends you that model. Then you can take it into 123D Catch, and you can clean it up. And more importantly, it exports as a file that you can then import into 3ds Max, into Maya, and into Smoke. So that's what we're going to do. So let me stop my playback here. And let's go back to a 2 layout real quick. And back in my timeline, I'm going to jump over to where we have a shot right here. Now, first of all, let me explain what they did in the film. You have a couple different elements here. We have the live action footage of the woman sitting at the desk with the green screen behind her. And then underneath that, I have a render of the actual machine room. Now, as I scrub through or play this, you'll notice that the render has the exact camera movement that the live action footage does. How was that done? Was because not only can we do a 3D track inside of Smoke, we can export that camera and all the point clouds and the locators to go into our 3D applications, such as 3ds Max. We can exchange the camera back and forth because it is the same camera. So let's go down here where I have part of the composite already done, and we'll step into the Connect effects. And I want to show you how, so I've got that part done, but let's go and show you how the 3D tracker works. So I'll add a new action tool, because that's where you access the 3D tracker, and I'll bring that woman, that live action plate, into action. The concept is you can build the tools you need for a 3D tracker, but I find it easier just to drag the tool up like this, and it'll build all the elements that I need. So I've got my background plate, I've got my axis, I got a new 3D camera, which is an FBX camera, which is Max and Maya's camera, and I also have an analyzer. I can go into detail about the analyzer, but I'm just going to click the Analyze button and let it start to process. I haven't changed any parameters whatsoever. I'm letting it go default. So it's going to give me 100 trackers. It's going to use the camera autofocus and build it all based on the settings that are by default. But you could fine-tune them if you wanted to. You could come in here and you can use mats as a constraint to say, I want you to solve the camera movement, but only with inside of this mask or outside of this mask. You can also change the camera settings, your focal length, and so on. Once it's done, which is going to take another second here, actually that's quite fast if you think about the time it took to process that whole analyze. Now I can switch my viewport to look at the end result. So this view here will set this to look at my point cloud. I'll zoom back. And let's also do a rotation here of my view. So you can see there's my camera. There's all the different the trackers that have been made. And in this one, we're going to set this to look at the end result with the trackers. So as I scrub through the scene, you can see Smoke has given me all these possible trackers. What's great about this is I can now fine-tune this. If I go over to my fine-tune tab, I can come in here and I can say, let's take the quality, and let's take this, the shortness, and you'll notice some of them turn red. That's because we're going to delete those. We're going to clean up the track. Then I can update my camera solve based on the new trackers that I just cleaned up. And the whole point of this now is I can export this to 3ds Max or to Maya if I wanted to. Or, and what I'm going to do right now is I want to take that bottle that we created at 123D Catch, and I want to put it on our desk. So we're going to go back to my schematic view very quickly, and I'll select the analyzer. And if you looked, I got a tracker right here. I'm going to tell it to create an axis. So by doing that, you'll notice that I get one axis right here. That's great. That's what we're going to use for the table. Now, if I select another tracker, say one over here, I say create another axis, I get another one because I want to use this one as my light. So let's import our geometry. So I go to my tool bin, and I'll choose import, and I'll go out here, and I'm going to set this to be FBX, and I jump to my folder. There's my bottle right there. If I can get there we go. Select this, and I import it. And then as soon as it comes in, what I can do is take the tracker and attach it. So now you'll see I have my gigantic bottle, and it's following the camera movement perfectly because of the 3D track. And I always like doing this because I want to make sure you see that this is true geometry. So I'll switch this to wireframe, and I can rotate this. This isn't a flat image. It is full geometry that I am importing into Smoke. Let me now take my bottle, bring it down in size a little bit, and we can move it around. Okay, that looks good. Now we want to light it so it matches the light in the scene. So I'm going to go over to my lights. I'll add a light into the scene. I've got this tracker right here, which is going to be used for my light. So I'll connect that like so. And I'll take this light and just take it back into Z-space, way back by the camera. Then I'm going to add one more light that's going to be a light focused on the bottle itself. Again, I can make my connection, and you'll notice that the scene just got very bright. Well, that's because the two lights are working together right now. What's great about the workflow is I can come in here and I can start telling Smoke, I want this light to affect my geometry. And I can tell it also, I want this light not to affect my geometry. So now you can see I have this control over this light to light that bottle any way that I want. So this is the whole point. 3D tracking built right into the tool. It's not an extra plugin. It's nothing that I have to add to the software. It's right out of the box in 2015. So I got 5 minutes. Perfect. So this is a wrap-up. We've got Smoke, new pricing structure for you, making it even more accessible, faster, works fantastic on the Mac Pro, works fantastic on the new Mac software. And as I said, we have a book created by Alexis Herkman. Thank you very much. That's Smoke 2015. Now go out and buy it.